They chose him for a reason.
A holographic doctor can replace a starship's medical officer.
They thought they were getting the very best.
I'm here to make you immortal.
But for Bashir to become the doctor of the future,
You brought my parents to this station against my explicit wishes.
his darkest secret
My whole career could be destroyed.
must remain buried in his past.
Well, what about us? We could go to prison.
Star Trek Voyager's Robert Picardo guest stars on the next Star Trek Deep Space Nine.
For nearly 5 full seasons, Dr. Julian Bashir has alternately thrived and languished, beset by more inconsistent characterization than 70 Marvel movie characters stacked on top of each other, plagued by bromance over romance with a relationship life worthy of Charlie Sheen. And folks, it all turns around in this episode right here. Dr. Bashir, I presume? I am your intrepid host, Captain Fist, alongside Lieutenant Commander Gell. You made an interesting comment after the episode was over that it was better than you remembered. So rap to me about what you originally remember about the episode, how you originally encountered it, and how you originally regarded it.
Hello, folks. How you doing? I would say that when I first watched it, there was a bit of disinterest. When I was younger, Bashir wasn't really my favorite character.
It's okay. It's all right to be wrong.
As a child, yes. As children are often wrong about things.
Right.
And after I was done having my dinner of ice cream,
Yeah.
I pondered and thought, well, it was okay. We got some characterization about Bashir, and, I didn't think much of it. Going back and looking at it again, there was a really great performance coming out of Alexander Siddig.
And his parents as well.
Yes.
Which his mother wasn't even a real TV actor. She was actually like a social anthropology professor or something.
Really?
Who was doing a little community theater on the side. They couldn't figure out, because you guys may or may not be aware, this is still very much true, but not a whole lot of Islamic female actresses. Not a whole lot. They're not generally allowed out of doors. So it was literally an impossibility. And by the way, the person who says this isn't me. This isn't edgy right-wing guy saying this or whatever. This is actually Alexander Siddig who said this. They consulted him, in fact. They were so desperate to find an actress of the correct ethnicity. They wanted some kind of a woman who was of Arab descent. And Alexander Siddig literally just set him down and was like, look, you're better off looking for an albino unicorn. You're not going to find one. They're not allowed to leave their houses in some cases, let alone perform in the theater. The closest you're going to find, as he explained, because I believe his heritage is like kind of North African, like Egyptian sort of heritage. He was like, the closest you're going to find is an Egyptian actress. And that's only because they're a lot more liberal in their laws. And even then, the likelihood of finding one that's good, and more than that, it's not really going to be of Arabic descent. So you're still kind of back to square one. So they wind up just kind of putting feelers out. They find this lady who had been doing local community theater. And I mean literally like 1 or 2 productions. And she looks to me like she's of Indian descent.
Yeah.
Personally. But either way, they get her, and she wasn't sure she could do it. She was super nervous. Like, I've never done television before. I've never done a movie. I've never done anything. And they're like, look, just We heard that you have a very warm demeanor on stage, and she did when she came in to sort of try out. So just, their advice was, be yourself. And sure enough, it worked. I thought she was good.
She killed it. She did a great job.
Several of the people, and of course, veteran actor as Bashir's father, but we'll talk about him in a moment. We open it all. Well, we begin really with Bashir's latest excursion into the friend zone, Lita. And we're opening up here basically with the B plot. Actually.
Yeah, we're getting something started here.
Yeah, this is a story that was kind of pitched by a freelance writer who had done several episodes for Voyager already by this point. And he was inspired by having a daughter who had a learning disability. And so that's kind of the original inspiration for this idea. And so they get this cool kind of nut of an idea. They really crack it when they get to, like, they're breaking down the story beats, and Ronald D. Moore is trying to rack his brain. We got to figure out a secret, and they think back to the eugenics wars being mentioned, right?
Yeah.
That helps crack it for them, so they know they've got the germ of a good episode, but they need a B plot because it's not enough. So they had always wanted to put Rom and Lita together. And so here we go. Rom has to work up the courage to insert the single worst romantic subplot in this entire show into it. And that's really where we're at this point. He's got to work up the courage.
I'm really gonna do it this time.
You've been saying that for weeks.
I've been waiting for the right moment, and this is it.
Now?
It's perfect. She's about to go on a break, and when she does, she'll come over here and say hi to me, like she always does. And that's when I'll do it.
Okay, let's hear it.
Lita, would you like maybe to one night soon to maybe...
Ron, you're a regular poet.
I could do better.
Prove it.
And, but of course, meanwhile, we jump over to Bashir and O'Brien. That's the it's funny the way this is introduced. It seems like Bashir would be the B plot, which is clever actually when you think about it, because we don't know the secret yet. We don't know how important Bashir is. But right just here and now, O'Brien's blue balls are actually the main event. He's talking about his wife raising the kid and basically thinly veiled allusions to not getting any. Right? And they're playing darts. This is crucial, folks. They're playing darts because, believe it or not, this is very, very important. Or at least they are until they're interrupted.
Dr. Bashir, I presume.
Yes. Enter the only decent Star Trek Voyager character. Please state the nature of your expository setup emergency.
Dr. Bashir, I presume? That's me. I'm Louis Zimmerman, Director of Holographic Imaging and Programming at the Jupiter Research Station, and I'm here to make you immortal.
He is here to set up the plot of the episode. Who is it, Taryn?
It is Dr. Louis Zimmerman.
Yes.
The creator of the emergency medical hologram.
Yep. He had actually stumped to be on the show because he had already guest starred in First Contact, right? He popped up in that movie for a minute in a really memorable sequence, right?
Yes, yes.
Can I recommend some analgesic cream? I love that moment in the movie. And so he was like, well, shoot, I loved doing that. I got to be on another Star Trek show. So he stumped the DS9 writers, hey, can I be on your show? And finally, they were thinking about it, and finally, this is what really helped them break the B plot of the episode. They were like, well, what would we want to do with the real Dr. Zimmerman? Like, how would we... He kind of seems like a slimy douche. So, what's a good thing for him to do? And then they got this idea of Rom and Dr. Zimmerman fighting over the same woman. And so that's how you wind up with this. And then it winds up being sort of inserted into the main plot. So Starfleet decided, I guess, the EMH shouldn't suffer from horseshoe baldness. And they're going to pattern the new LMH, which stands for what, Taryn?
Long-term medical holographic program thingy.
Right, after Bashir. And explain what exactly the concept of that is.
Well, I mean, the EMH was never meant to, like, last a long time. It's
much less 7 unwatchable seasons.
Very unwatchable. There's like 10 good episodes. Anyway,
I'm getting Taryn started on Voyager.
Don't get me started, man. It's gonna be this is gonna be a rough one, folks.
It is.
Yeah, it's not meant to run a very long time. So they want Starfleet, that is, wants a long-term solution.
Yes.
Something that is
final solution.
Something that is meant to be just left on.
Yeah.
The way Zimmerman explains it is that it's for distant places where the doctor really has no reason to leave sickbay. Very small places like research stations and the like.
Right. It's interesting because there was supposed to be a subplot here that winds up getting excised. Did you know this?
No, what?
The subplot is that, and we never get into this, so this really isn't spoilers, but the idea is that Starfleet foisted this idea on Zimmerman. He didn't want to do this. So he's actually trying to commit subterfuge on the EMH. And there's a sequence a little later in the show where they're working the bugs out of the LMH, right? He's like walking into a wall and stuff.
Yeah.
That's supposed to allude to a plot that winds up being removed from the episode, where Zimmerman is basically undermining his own program because he wants to remain the EMH. And O'Brien discovers what he's doing and blackmails him with it. So that was kind of a separate plot. Again, this isn't really spoilers because it doesn't wind up happening in the episode. But the idea is ultimately that he's gonna, O'Brien and Zimmer, it was gonna give O'Brien something to do, essentially, which makes sense. You do kind of wonder, because O'Brien doesn't play that large of a role in this episode, why he's introduced so immediately and seemingly featured so prominently if they're not going to do much with him. So it kind of, you can tell that they cut some stuff out of here. But regardless, the thing I love about this is how Robert Picardo, who is a mensch, he doesn't play the same character as in Voyager, right?
No.
Instead, he just acts like a big, swollen, sweaty phallus the entire time. He's fun to watch, he's fun to dislike, and yet he's not, like, completely one-dimensional, right? They're, right after that, Bashir and Dr. Creeper elect to leer at Lita and her, brains.
Yes. Large brains.
Large, rounded brains that are absolutely not constructed of silicone. And she's working the Dabo wheel, and I love this line where he's like, she's actually my ex-girlfriend. And he's like, oh, really? Who broke it off? And this is not canonical, by the way. This is a contradiction. Bashir says she did. And he says, oh, I like her already. But it's BS.
They both broke it off.
Yeah, if you remember back to that episode, they broke it off mutually. They just didn't want to be together, so they just kind of invent that for the purposes of that one-liner. I'll let it slide. It's fine. But yeah, I don't know. So we wind up, back in sickbay, where they're basically modeling the program.
Yeah, exactly. Little questions here and there.
Yes. So give us the rundown on this.
Zimmerman is explaining to Bashir, well, we need a complete psychological profile. We need to know, I think Bashir points out, how would you say your eating habits changed between when you were 15, 20, 25, stuff like that.
Were you eating stinky Indian food?
And Zimmerman explains, well, we're going to have to talk to everyone. We're going to have to talk to friends, family, etc., etc.
Yep.
And Bashir points out, hey, look, as a personal favor to me...
Yeah, because we've known each other for so long.
Could you not interview my parents?
Right.
Pretty please?
Yeah. And he pretends to agree and then does it anyway. But I think it's the next scene where they're actually showing off the program. I like the little touch that the Bashir hologram has a different hairdo and kind of looks different and has a different affect. But
yeah, a little.
The thing I was thinking the whole time is like, isn't this all a little bit soon after it was revealed that Biden had been replaced for like 3 months by a Biden double? Didn't all a little bit? Haven't we had a little too much fake Julian for one season already? But, you know, they explain that the program, or the hologram rather, is still essentially the EMH. So it's got Zimmerman's personality.
Correct.
Which is why he's a total douche.
Right.
But yeah, then we get into the section of the episode, which is a total rip homage to the Emmy-winning episode of MASH, where all the doctors and such are being interviewed about the one person on the show. And so you get Cisco, and you get, well, ultimately you get Lita, right?
Right.
And after her interview segment, he, of course, asks her out.
Truth is, he's an extraordinary person. A real sense of honor and integrity, great sense of humor, warm, caring. You sure he's not going to read this?
Positive.
So is that all?
There is one other thing. Would you have dinner with me this evening?
But that, I caught that immediately, like, oh, someone's been watching MASH recently. Gotcha, because that was a huge episode. That wound up winning a bunch of awards and stuff.
We should also point out we get a quick glimpse of Jake.
Yes!
Who's in this episode for all of 10 seconds.
Poor guy. Don't worry, he'll be a more prominent character coming up pretty soon here. But, but yeah, he does get his one little line of dialogue here. I think everybody but Garrick is in this. No, maybe Kira is not in it.
No. She was interviewed. She there.
She was. You're correct, because
Worf was too.
Worf was, and Jadzia was. Slightly insufferable. But, yeah, I'm trying to think. Really, only Garrick is missing, I think.
Yeah.
But regardless, by the end of this, he's interviewing Lita, and, oh, just one more question. Would you all go out with me? Would you go to the box social, please? Go to the homecoming dance? Look, he may be a total douche canoe, but at least he's got game. That's all I'm saying. Which is more than we can say for Rom, who would prefer to skulk in dark corners of Quark's bar and use his daredevil powers to overhear conversations.
I've never seen this before.
Did you know Ferengi could do this?
Like literally tuning his ears like they're antenna sitting on top of an old TV, looking for a signal.
Yep. And, you know, Zimmerman and Lita have a little bit of chemistry, kind of, but she really wants that bald orange dome of Rom, I guess. She doesn't want the bald pale dome of Dr. Zimmerman. You can just kind of tell, right? And Rom is just kind of skulking there, whatever. And I think it's right after that Bashir gets called into Cisco's office, right?
Yes, they're discussing something that's in the air of the station.
Yes, the plot device particles.
Yeah, the station's leaking. It needs repairs.
It does. Very large leak, very dangerous. But we're all fine here now. And then Jadzia shows up to be really cringe and says that, hey, Bashir's got 2 visitors. Hey, I haven't expressed any interest in 5 seasons. Now I care. And who walks in but Babu from Seinfeld?
Oh. My God.
Hello, Jules.
Captain, allow me to introduce Amsha and Richard Bashir, my parents.
You're a very, very good man. Very, very good man. It's his parents. It's Bashir's parents, who, again, this is probably the most overt, over the course of the series, I think this is the most overt reference we get to Bashir not being a white dude.
Yeah.
You know, it's clear these people are ethnic. His dad, even though he has kind of, I like the touch that his dad, his father's actor puts into it, where he has a British accent, but it's like a working class British accent.
Yeah.
And
not very posh.
And his mom is much more ethnic, so she's sounds more like. Actually, it sounds a little like a Mexican accent to me, but regardless, she has much more of a like ethnic accent, which means, and I love this choice, because it's by doing that, what the parents are saying is, well, where did Bashir's accent come from? Why does he have a posh London accent?
Exactly.
Because he's trying to distance himself from his parents. Freaking genius move from his father and mother, the actor and actresses. I'd like that, just absolutely nailed it for me. But yeah, so right away he is super uncomfortable.
And it's easy. You can tell he's like, oh, yes, these are my parents.
Mm-hmm. Theoretically, I was produced by them. And they kind of, Bashir just looks really uncomfortable the whole time while his dad is kind of talking up his triumphs. His dad is a total bullshit merchant.
Oh yeah, and you can tell right away.
Yeah. Which is funny because the writer himself of the episode basically patterned Bashir's dad after himself. He was one of those guys, and we all know those kind of people who they've done a million things.
You just haven't heard of them.
And yep, exactly. Oh, you're just not aware. Oh yeah, absolutely. I was big in radio. I was big in movies. I was big in video games, right? Like those guys that they're always bragging, and usually the story is I was like sweeping up the freaking bathrooms at a TV station one time, right? Like that's usually the real story. I love how he plays that. He nails that pretty much right off the bat. And speaking of nailing, in the very next scene, Zimmerman drops off at Lita's for a bouquet with a side of boobies. He makes really the whole purpose of this visit, beyond getting a side glance at Lita's knockers, is he makes a romantic interlude that no woman could possibly resist.
How would you like your own cafe?
Yeah, being a backwater bartender, who could resist?
Have I caught you at a bad time?
It's never a bad time for flowers. Come on in. Could you find a place for those while I change?
Of course.
By the way, if you're trying to impress me, you've succeeded.
I spoke to some of my colleagues at the Jupiter station this morning. It seems that the manager of our station cafe has decided to quit.
Really?
They're still looking for a new manager, someone with experience in both food service and entertainment. Someone like you.
Me?
Yes, I've already taken the liberty of speaking to our station's commanding officer about you, and she's amenable to the idea. The cafe is yours if you want it.
My own cafe? Oh. Sorry.
Not at all.
Now, can we just talk for a moment about Jupiter Station? This is in the Sol system.
Yeah.
Like, this should be, like, a big deal. But the way it's always presented, I mean, by Zimmerman and by everyone else, is like, oh, it's just this little place that's not important at all.
It's a Star Trek strip mall. No, like Starfleet strip mall. Don't worry about it. And she says, I'm thinking it over. She's...
Well, I'm thinking it over.
Which, by the way, what kind of anti-gravity towel tech do they have in Star Trek?
One that also lifts.
Yes!
And,
can you imagine, like, the underwire work that's going on with that?
I'm sure they're hanging from the ceiling.
Oh, my God. But, yeah, meanwhile, back at Bashir Manor, the Bashirs are enjoying a meal of replicated gruel. Sorry, replicated Indian gruel.
Better.
Imagine the smell. Just imagine the smell. And right here, the whole purpose of this is what, Taryn? This whole kind of conversation.
Well, not just to solidify the fact that this is super awkward and he doesn't want them here.
Right.
It's to coach his parents into not saying anything that might get them all in trouble.
Yeah. Turns out Bashir has, and I quote, a little secret. And for once, it doesn't involve a fully nude Garrick on a bearskin rug. They're alluding to something that they're trying to keep from Starfleet. And I like how this is introduced because you really do wonder. If you didn't know what this episode is about, there's nothing that would give this away up until this point.
Literally, no one knew about this until the day the script was delivered.
Yeah.
Including Alexander Siddig.
Well, yes and no. They had been breaking. They received this script a long time before it aired, right? So I don't know. We don't know when they cracked the idea of the core conceit of the episode. So it is possible that for a season or more, they knew what they were going to do, but they were still working on the script and on the episode. So this you have to keep in mind. This is a Voyager freelancer. This was one of the first scripts that he delivered. He wound up doing like 6 episodes of Voyager or something like that. So this guy, like, he was deep in Voyager. So this was dropped off quite a while before, probably season 4 at the latest. And who knows, maybe even a little bit earlier than that. So we don't know. I don't know. Looking back, though, it's brilliant how well it worked out because it explains so much. It explains a ton. And it almost creates foreshadowing where the previous writers did not even intend it. You look back on certain things that Bashir has done and said up until this point. Do you remember the episode? Was it, what was the episode where they're back on Earth and you had kind of Bashir was asked, hey, do you want me to take anything back to anyone on Earth?
Oh, yeah, and
Bashir basically said, like,
there's no one there I want to talk to.
Yeah, there's absolutely no one there I'm interested in. Brilliant. And I don't even know if they were aware of that at the time, because, that was recently enough that they could have been working on this script, but, dude, that's just genius. It's one of those twists, but we won't deliver that right away. But yeah, it's right away. I think we jump over to Rom we get another stammering Rom trying to talk to Lita sequence.
Yeah, she's asking for advice on what to do. It's like, well, I could accept his offer and go to
if I wasn't, too busy jumping on Ferengi Dick, maybe I would take it. Hint, nudge, nudge. The dick may or may not belong to Rom. And he's just can't get it out.
I don't know.
Yeah, can you tell the writers of this episode are all geeks? It's very much, look, many such cases. It is what it... In fairness to Rom, he isn't used to speaking to clothed women, I imagine. But from there, we go over to the infirmary. And
the
Bashirs walk up and they see what appears to be their son. And emphatically, they promise not to betray their baby boy's secret by betraying their baby boy's secret.
Is there something I can do for you?
Your father has something he wants to say. Richard.
It's a stressful time for all of us, and maybe I said some things I Shouldn't have.
What he's trying to say is we would never do anything to jeopardize your career.
And just so there's no misunderstanding, I give you my word that at no time in our interview with Dr. Zimmerman will we ever mention or even hint at the fact that you were genetically enhanced as a child.
Jules, you can trust us. Your father and I have kept the secret of your DNA resequencing for almost 25 years, and we're not going to let it out now.
But I would just add that despite what the authorities would like us to believe, genetic engineering is nothing to be ashamed of. You're not any less human than anyone else. In fact, you're a little more.
We didn't come here to start another fight. Let's just try to get through this. All right?
All right.
Yes. By walking into this very large room,
Yeah.
just talking to their very stiff and unemotional son, loudly talking about
Yeah.
their secret out loud. Oh, hey, you know, we promise not to tell Zimmerman about the bodies.
Yes!
Like,
The money is in the and they turn around, they explain exactly what.
that Dr. Julian Bashir is genetically engineered. He has been enhanced.
Yes. And not just cognitively. Physically, in every conceivable way. He is a freak of nature. And dude, talk about when the first time you heard this, how did this hit you?
I thought maybe it kind of explained a few things.
Yeah.
Like I said,
I mean, he discovered a cure for a genophage.
he was always a little too bright.
Yeah, he all the cybernetic enhancements to Vedic Burial, the way he managed to keep him alive like Dr. Frankenstein, and just the way every time his past was alluded to, he just shut it down. He is, and probably one of the reasons that's understated, that this reveal works so well, is that of the entire crew, can you think of anyone that we know less about their background to this point?
Yeah.
We
it's
know
a good
more
point.
about Odo, and his name means unknown sample. Bashir is a total question mark up until this point. Brilliant. All we know really is he was almost a tennis star and pre-ganglionic fiber, post-ganglionic nerve.
Right.
Right? And he doesn't want to talk to anybody from Earth. That's it. That's it up until this point. That, I think, is why this works so well. It's because we have a complete kind of question mark that just needs to be wiped out and something needs to replace it. And so having something with a bit of intrigue to it. And that really, honestly, going forward with Bashir, I would say that's the watchword for this character. It's one of the reasons he might be my favorite character on the show. Is intrigue is kind of the watchword for this character. He is, ultimately, we're going to get into kind of some spycraft later on with this character, stuff like that. He almost as much as Garrick, he's a character that you learn more about. There's always some kind of intrigue with him. There's a little bit more to him. He starts off as the tenderfoot. By here in season 5, this to me is the moment that he fully matures as a fully formed character. I don't know. Would you agree with that? Or
I would definitely agree. Having the truth, spoilers for the end, but when the truth becomes known, the character is allowed to evolve, essentially become himself.
yes, there are lengthy consequences for this character that play out from season 5 to the end. There are episodes dealing with this in season 7. Okay? This is a big deal. This is a big deal, and it's the kind of long-term consequences that Star Trek had not really explored to this point. In the episodic format of the original series and TNG and most of Voyager, this kind of stuff was not really done. This is classic. This is top flight DS9, and it's one of the reasons I think this is up there with the better episodes of Star Trek, really. Bashir back in his quarters, O'Brien breaks it to him, which I like that. That feels true to O'Brien's character. They step out from behind the divider, which why did they even do that? And O'Brien, of course, is the first one to tell him, look, we overheard you. I gotta let my friend know that we know.
Right.
It's true to his character. And Bashir at last admits he is, and I quote, unnatural, at least outside of Fire Island.
A monster.
Yeah. And then we hear a Shakespearean soliloquy about how genetic doctors basically gave him anti-retard powers as a kid.
Right. See, at a point you kind of understand. It's like, okay, there's something wrong with your kid, so they take him to go get fixed, right?
Yep.
But then I guess Dad takes it a step or two too far,
Yep.
and they start making enhancements.
What was it was like something Eden. What was the name of the colony? Do you remember?
Oh, something Prime, a Digian Prime?
Something like that. It is known for this, and it's basically kind of a out of the way, off the books kind of a thing, right? It's a back alley Tijuana abortion of Starfleet.
Pretty much.
Basically.
Zimmerman thought it would be a good idea to test the program's ability to cope with an unexpected situation.
And you let them go on? You let them stand there and make fools of themselves while the two of you sat in the back room and laughed?
Look, I'm sorry about this. I wish it had never happened. But it has, and now we've got a problem.
I don't want to talk about it.
Julian, Zimmerman is going to file a report saying that Dr. Bashir is unsuitable for computer modeling because of his suspected genetically enhanced background. You know what's going to happen when that report gets back to Starfleet Medical?
It's going to be a formal investigation, which will lead to my eventual dismissal from the service.
Then it's true?
The word you're looking for is unnatural, meaning not from nature.
The only lie he truly tells in this entire sort of monologue is there's no stigma attached to success. Thanks for the pep talk, literal member of a redistributionist space commie kind of collective. Like, what? What are you talking about? Tell that to the Maquis. Fucking asshole. But yeah, there's no stigma attached to success because O'Brien's inquiring, how did no one know? Right? Because everything about him, he explains, has been genetically modified. His reflexes, hand-eye coordination, his cognition, everything. Absolutely everything. So he excelled in everything. We do get a little bit more later about the pre-ganglionic fiber, post-ganglionic nerve thing that actually, I believe they explain later on that he essentially deliberately threw that so as not
to draw attention,
to arouse suspicion, which is brilliant. This is the kind of stuff that really, really makes this character come alive. But speaking of characters that are not coming, back at Quark's, Rom is cradling a bottle of booze and contemplating why he painted his fingernails blue. And Quark comes over and kind of, I don't even want to call this a pep talk. He essentially talks him out of asking Lita out.
Basically, he reminds him of his first quote-unquote marriage.
Yep. Which I do like this stuff. I do like hearing, because you wonder, like, why is he out here all alone with his nephew? Or with his son?
His son, yeah.
Yeah, with Quark's nephew. How did he wind up a single father? What happened there? Because it doesn't seem like women have the upper hand on Ferenginar.
No, but their fathers do.
Yeah. So, but of course, Quark he's not completely empty. Like, he's not unsympathetic to his complaints. Quark offers him a holosuite Pornhub account, basically, and but Rom refuses. I'm not a coomer, brother, and walks away from that. But it is cool. I mean, even though I don't like the Lita Rom romance at all, and I don't think it ever really says or accomplishes anything except to amuse the writers.
Let me refresh your memory. You signed a standard 5-year marriage contract with Trinidor's father because you wanted to have a child, a simple, everyday business deal. But then, You fell in love with your wife and wanted to extend the contract. And you were so in love that you never bothered to read the extension before signing it. So in the end, her father swindled you out of all of your money. Prinador left you for a richer man. And you got stuck with Nog. Hooray for romance.
Lita is not Trinadora.
She's a female, Rom. And the one constant in the universe is females are trouble. Look, if you're lonely, I've got a new holosuite program. Vulcan Love Slave Part 2, The Revenge. Give it a try.
This is really kind of an indulgent thing for me. Because Star Trek writers are geeks, let's be real. They're geeks. They'd like to think that they could get the buxom Bajoran chick. They'd like to think that. And I think that's why they insert that into this as essentially wish fulfillment. I don't know, what do you think about this?
It is wish fulfillment, let's face it.
Yeah.
They want the loser to win.
It's their waifu.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
He's getting the hot chick. Let's just be real about it.
Yep. And then of course we get the inevitable argument between Bashir and his folks.
Right.
Where he has to confront them on how retarded they are. And he goes off, we're all gonna burn, we're all gonna fry. Walk us through this. What exactly are they rapping about?
Well, first, of course, Dad is trying to fix things. Mm-hmm. It's like, how dare they? We're gonna fight this all the way to the top. And Bashir's...
I've got top men!
And Bashir's like, oh yeah, this is always you. You're always running away. You're never willing to accept responsibility. Yep. And they basically come out and explain, look, you were a retard.
Yeah, you were a glorious retard.
You were a broken person in paradise.
Yep.
And paradise is not kind to broken people.
Yeah, he was in the short bus contingent of Starfleet. And Bashir he's still impassioned about it's illegal, and you're just running from responsibility. To which I say, relax, Julian, your dad's Indian with a British accent. There's a good chance he's illegal, for Christ's sake. And they kind of leave it at he understands why they did it, but doesn't respect them for it.
You don't understand, Jules. You never did.
No, you don't understand. I stopped calling myself Jules when I was 15 and I found out what you'd done to me. I'm Julian.
What difference does that make?
It makes every difference. Because I'm different. Can't you see? Jules Bashir died in that hospital because you couldn't live with the shame of having a son who didn't measure up.
That's not true. We were never ashamed of you, never.
I'm sorry, Mother, but the truth is...
You don't know. You've never had a child. You don't know what it's like to watch your son. To watch him fall a little further behind every day. You know he's trying, but something's holding him back. You don't know what it's like to stay up every night worrying that maybe it's your fault. Maybe you did something wrong during the pregnancy, or maybe you weren't careful enough, or maybe there's something wrong with you. Maybe you passed on a genetic defect without even knowing it.
I'm sure.
No, this is important. You can condemn us for what we did. You can say it's illegal or immoral, whatever you want to say. But you have to understand that we didn't do it because we were ashamed, but because you were our son, and we loved you.
That's the last thing we hear until he is called into Sisko's office again.
Yes, they all sleep on it, and the next morning, Bashir gets called to the office. And he's at the end of that conversation they had, we didn't mention, he's going to resign. He doesn't want to drag this out.
Well, he was aware. He's aware. We didn't mention this in the O'Brien scene, but he mentions to O'Brien. O'Brien says that they're going to have a full investigation, and Bashir says, and they'll have an investigation, and I will be removed from my commission.
Yeah,
because it's all true. It's all completely true. So Bashir is fatalistic about this. He already knows his job is over. He won't be allowed to be in Starfleet. It's all going to fall on him. which doesn't make a whole lot of sense, by the way. But anyways, we quickly turn that around on its head, though, because what we learn in this scene is Babu and Nikki Haley are turning themselves into a cushy corporate prison in New Zealand, where they'll doubtless be laboring mightily on increasingly crap Hobbit films.
Right.
They are going to bear the full brunt. I like this. There's some character development for his parents. Because, look, the sins are theirs. They're not Bashir's. So they finally decide to stop running and take responsibility. And they're going to do... And we see Admiral Q-Ball, the guy we've never seen before, and I don't think we see again. I don't know. Maybe
Rear Admiral Bennett.
Yeah. And basically they worked out a bargain.
May I ask what's going on?
Your parents came to see me this morning. They explained the situation about your genetic background. I contacted Admiral Bennett a short time ago.
We've just reached an agreement which will allow you to retain both your commission and your medical practice.
I'm going to prison.
What?
2 years. It's a minimum security penal colony in New Zealand.
You can't do this.
It was your father's suggestion, Doctor. He pleads guilty to illegal genetic engineering, and in exchange, you stay in the service.
Well, I want no part of it. I'm not going to just stand here while my father...
Julian, listen to me. This is my decision. I'm the one who took you to Odyssey Prime. I'm the one who should take responsibility for it.
Let him do this, Julian.
2 years. Isn't that a bit harsh?
I don't think so. 200 years ago, we tried to improve the species through DNA resequencing. And what did we get for our trouble? The eugenics wars. For every Julian Bashir that can be created, there's a Khan Singh waiting in the wings. A superhuman whose ambition and thirst for power have been enhanced along with his intellect. The law against genetic engineering provides a firewall against such men. And it's my job to keep that firewall intact.
We get a little bit of a lecture here.
Right, it's
on
like...
the anti-eugenics stuff. The anti-genetic engineering. And I notice in 2024, the anti-eugenics plot point in Star Trek doesn't get featured particularly prominently among ideological lefties on Twitter.
They always seem to skip over all of the wars and horrible shit that, you know, this universe went through to get to this point.
Yeah.
They just focus on, oh, space exploration and replicators and holosuites and blah, blah, blah. They forget, oh, right, World War III,
puritanical aversion to genetic engineering.
The eugenics wars.
Dude, our current reality is doing more genetic engineering than Star Trek is. Because they're not allowed to. They're not allowed to in Star Trek. That's your space commie future utopia. We're told by certain elements of the social media sphere, from ideological cultural Marxists, let's be real, that Star Trek is essentially the realization of space commie utopia. This is Marx's vision, you know, writ large. And meanwhile, they're completely puritanical about the human genome, to the point of almost being eugenic themselves. Kind of amazing. This is just not something you ever hear about. But it's handled really well. The performance here from his father and from his mother, dude, they knock it out of the park. Cisco acts a little weird in this. He's like smiling ear to ear, like he's happy about this.
Everything's gonna be fine. I get to keep my doctor.
Yeah, like he's just overjoyed at the idea that Bashir's parents are gonna spend 2 years in prison.
Minimum security for a Federation prison.
No kidding.
It might as well be a vacation.
Yeah, there's probably not even a force field around the resort they'll be staying in. But then we head out to the docking ring, where Zimmerman and Lita are about to depart, when suddenly... what do we hear?
And suddenly, you know, as we're going off onto the shuttlecraft, in the distance you hear, Lita! Wait! And Rom comes up and he says, Lita, I love you. And Lita says, oh, Rom, as I always said, oh, Rom, and we're going to live happily ever after, right? Well, that was fine for Lita and Rom, but not fine for poor Bob Picardo, because Bob Picardo was left without the girl. And not only that, he had no one to go off in the shuttlecraft with, but not only that, they hadn't written him an exit line. So, what, is he gonna do, fade off into the sunset there, you know, and let us just take the scene? Not Bob Picardo.
Don't worry about me, I'll be fine. Goodbye.
Why?
Excuse me, are you familiar with the ancient text known as the Kama Sutra?
The take was that he used in the very first take that they shot, which I thought was funnier, which I thought that they should have used, is as he follows the woman off on the shuttlecraft, he says, excuse me, miss, have you heard about my work on Star Trek Voyager? And we just laughed. We just laughed.
I don't know. Fucking something in the distance.
Yeah.
And it's getting louder.
Yeah. An air raid siren of some kind.
That's exactly how I would have described it.
Yeah, and Rom suddenly, all at once, decides to use his words. And Dr. Zimmerman gets cucked by the resident retard. That's
pretty much how it goes.
That's what happened. Fortunately, he's doesn't have blue balls for very long. One of those nebulous, skin-tight leather chick aliens comes sauntering by.
Says, true love must always win.
Oh, yes.
Bye now.
Oh, yes. I do like that. I don't think this is the last time we see Dr. Zimmerman. I don't know. I can't remember enough about 6 and 7 to know if he shows up again. But I do remember that being a womanizer is part of his kind of character.
Yeah.
Established. But I do like that. I like that he's got that kind of going on. But regardless, folks, Dr. Bashir, I presume. This is one of my favorite episodes of the whole series. I think it's handled really well. Really, the only points that I would dock is Rom and Lita's a dumb romance. It's stupid. It never bears fruit. I'd dock like it down to 4.5. It would be perfect otherwise. I don't like the B plot that much, even though I do like Dr. Zimmerman in it. And I even like Rom in it. I just think maybe it should be about a different chick. Lita, the Lita Rom thing never made a lick of sense.
Yeah.
And just feels like the writers inventing a waifu for themselves. Just kind of goofy. It's cool that she gets to do more stuff because she actually can act a little bit. But yeah, it's just that whole subplot to me docks points. But how can you focus on that when you're learning so much about one of the primary characters of DS9? To me, this is the moment where he really steps up several rungs with the main crew. He gets as much to do and explore as the other people in the cast. As, you know, we've had entire episodes talking about Dax's previous hosts and Odo's mysterious past and Sisko's war trauma and you know, his ex-wife issues, well, him being a widower, all of that stuff. We've had that with every single character on the show. We've even talked about O'Brien's, you know, Cardi trauma.
Yeah.
But Bashir, not much to this point. We've had strong Bashir episodes for sure, like The Quickening, but this really is a moment where the character he takes his first step into a larger world.
It took 5 seasons, but we finally got here.
We did. He's been steadily deepening as a character for some time now. I don't want to make it seem like this is just a pure pivot point, but this is a moment where he levels up and becomes a crucial member of the cast. Really, you stop dreading Bashir episodes and you start looking forward to them after this point. Dude, Dr. Bashir, I presume. I give it 4.5. What about you?
Well, back in the day, I would have just given it a 3.
Yeah.
But for me, it's gonna get a 5.
Really?
I'm gonna give it 2 extra big stars.
Big round stars.
Big, beautiful round stars.
Sopping wet pert stars.
Yeah.
I see your point, both of them. But anyways, until next time, folks, the depths of DS9 will return for Lieutenant Commander Gell. I am Captain Fist. Engage.
I've got a lot at stake here. My whole career could be destroyed if Dr. Zimmerman gets wind of our little secret.
You've got a lot at stake. But what about us? We could go to prison, Jules. Have you ever thought about that?
Of course I've thought about that. That's why I want you to take this seriously.
Very bad. Very, very, very bad.